Hello.
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
hello, 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 hello,
Hello,
hello,
hello, hello, hello.
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 Hello, hello. It is, we are very delighted as always to be here with all of you. And we are understanding that you're wanting to talk to me, and I love to talk if you have not noticed. Wow. And so what is it you're wanting to talk about?
Good evening, Raphael. Tonight, we're going to actually have people ask the questions themselves. So Kathy McIntosh, you were the first one to ask a question. So if you don't mind unmuting yourself and coming on, that'd be great. We'll give it a second. And if you don't want to come on, just message at the bottom and I can ask your question for you.
Hello.
Hello. So I think I'll just go ahead and ask the question. So how do we know we are surrendering, or if we're just being lazy, waiting for something to show up? What is the difference? Where does the difference lie?
You are very lazy. You are all very, very lazy. That is very funny. We are not really clear on what this word laziness is. For whatever state of being you happen to be in is absolutely divinely perfect of where you are in any given moment, even though that's very difficult from your perspective to necessarily comprehend. Surrendering is quite interesting. For sometimes you think of surrendering as an animal giving up, as an attack has come on them and they have surrendered their position and let go. So sometimes it has a negative connotation to it, the idea of surrendering itself. But from our perspective, perhaps what you are talking about is surrendering to life itself. And so if you're worrying about the fact that you're being lazy, then you're not really surrendering at all, are you? Because you're not surrendering to your laziness. And so there's a conflict there. There's resistance already in the idea that you're trying to surrender. Because if you're trying to surrender and you're worried that you're being lazy, then you're not surrendering. For surrendering is fully letting go to the presence of whatever is unfolding in any given moment with a great sense of peace with that, which then allows surrender to the laziness. And sometimes you give yourself permission to do what you would perhaps think of as nothing and just be. And you really surrender to the laziness completely, then perhaps you don't need to be very lazy for long at all. It's when you resist the laziness and you're feeling as though you're always needing to do something, accomplish something, have a goal, seek something other than what is, moving towards something new all the time, then it prolongs your laziness because there's a part of you that feels overwhelmed by that. And you're like, well, then I need to give myself a moment. And then that moment keeps expanding and you might even create illness or sickness to allow yourself the permission to be lazy. Or you might bring something or create something in your reality to come into your experience to give you the permission or the allowing, in a sense, from the outside experience to allow you to just be. But if you're willing to just surrender and really surrender even to what you may label as laziness, and you are just being in whatever is, with permission to that, without shame and without guilt, which is extraordinarily aligned with ego, which we can talk about later if you're all wanting to, because we love to talk about ego. Because if I can support all of you in releasing the ego into the nothingness of the stillness of the presence of now, then all this ridiculousness that you're all creating would begin to fall away. So surrendering is releasing into the presence of where you are, with complete allowing for it just to be. And so we encourage you to surrender to the laziness, and surrendering to the laziness actually shortens the amount of time that you might label as laziness or downtime, or a place of feeling inadequate or unproductive or procrastinating would actually begin to dissolve, because you wouldn't be resisting it. If you weren't resisting it and you just dropped into it for a period of time, then you just weren't allowing. Then you begin to move into stillness, into the presence of the now. When you move into that, inspiration, creativity, synchronicity, playfulness, ideas begin to emerge. But you always have to put a time frame on it. Now, we know that you're in the third dimension. You're very much connected to linear time. And so you think, well, I can only surrender for a week because I really have to get back to work. I can only surrender today and allow myself to just indulge and enjoy myself. I'm going to watch Netflix today and lay in bed and eat potato chips. And you might label that as laziness. But then you can't be lazy tomorrow, because you already were lazy, and you can only be lazy once in a while because you have things to get done, right? But that's not really truly surrendering. When you really drop into the full surrendering of the nothingness, then you realize that in that it might take an hour or two or a day or 3 or 5 or a month or 6. But if you're truly dropping into the surrendering, when that energy begins to, the inspiration, the creativity, and the light starts to move through you because you truly have surrendered, then you're so busy. It's just like many of your perhaps parents may have said to you, just wait a minute, the weather will change, right? Or just wait a minute from the sadness or the circumstance that you're experiencing, because it's ever evolving, it's ever moving, shifting, and changing. And so if you're surrendering into what is, something new is always coming along. So we encourage you, yes, to surrender to whatever is in the presence without label. And there's no correlation between surrendering and laziness. Because if you're worried about being lazy, then you're not really surrendering. So perhaps that's somewhat helpful. So just have a lazy day and surrender into that without placing a label upon that is perhaps what you might think of as naughty or bad or not good.
So you can't surrender if you're judging yourself, right?
Because then you're not surrendering at all.
Great. So we have some more questions, and it seems like a lot of people want me to ask the questions for them. One of them is...
Oh, but I want to talk to them.
Kelly Salmon, could you come on? Are you open to asking this question yourself about fear of death? See if you can unmute.
Yeah, so my question was how to overcome a fear of death that I've had since I was, well, as long as I can remember. It's like crippling anxiety and fears and
Oh,
and
my
now I
fears.
have a chronic illness, so now I feel like I'm constantly worrying about when my next attack will be, or when my next mental, not physical breakdown and mental breakdown.
it is that we understand that this fear for you is very real. And we in no way want to minimize it, but we want to remind you that if you've been afraid since you were a child of death, then you're not really living, because you're always focused on something that really isn't here in this presence. So we're going to always continue to come back in whatever question any of you are asking about moving into the presence and the breath of where it is that you are now, because right now you are breathing, and right now you are alive, and right now you are here in a body, and you are on earth. Now, we can give you some support in speaking to you about death, because death is inevitable, and every single one of you on this call, you are going to die. And it's interesting how you call it that it is death, but it really is not. It is really birth. And it is that, yes, the body that is housing your spirit right now, this temporary shell, will decay. And as it decays, it will merge back into the earth in one form or another. But you are truly eternal, and it is just, you are just energy, and you cannot be destroyed nor created. You are continuous. You are always shall be. And the essence of your spirit is everlasting. And it is that one of the most difficult choices that you've made as spirit was to choose to come to earth and to choose to be in a physical body. For you're very, very courageous, all of you, to do that. For with it comes so much beauty and so much connection to all the senses. But at the same time, there's a lot of pain and suffering that gets caught up in the mind and the ego and the thinking process that brings you away from the true spirit or essence of your being, or your soul's knowing. And so we want to show you and remind you of the vastness of who you are, that you are so much more than what you think of in the sense of this flesh of the body. And that you came and you chose to come down into form and into matter and to drop, as we call it, into density, into this body, to have this linear 3D human experience until it comes to a place of completion in which the soul contract has come to an end. And you choose to exit the body as the breath begins to fall away and the spirit soars. But when it soars, it arrives and it moves into a light that is indescribable from the perspective in which you are at, that is all encompassing and all welcoming of pure and absolute divine love, in which you are just blanketed in an overwhelming sea of love. And the love that we are talking about cannot be described in any way with the words you have in the human language and the dimension that you are in. But the sense of peace that you have is beyond measure, because you merge with the oneness of that love. And in that space, there is no thinking. And there is no thinking, and you are just merging with that. You see the perfection and the divinity in all things as you hover, as you begin to leave the body beyond and over into all things, looking and witnessing it. And it is magnificent. And it is beautiful, and it is your home, and it is a place that you shall return to. And it is hard to fully comprehend this, but most of you, the essence of who you are, actually resides there all the time. It is only a fraction of of who it is that you are that is actually in your body. We call this part of self, you might call it the higher self, or the angelic self, or the self fully connected to source. And if we were to describe it in a way, you are this gorgeous ball of love and light. And then you descend through what we call dimensions. And these dimensions we utilize in our speaking with you layers, as if they go up and down in order for you to comprehend it better in your thinking. But they actually fall inward, inside, and collapse into themselves. But for this description, we'll talk about them as steps. And you have, in a sense, your first dimension, right, which is the core or the earth star of the earth itself. And then you move into the second, which is the crystal and the mineral kingdom and all the elements of the earth itself. And you move into the third dimension, which is the dimension itself that you are in now, occupied in the mind, in the thinking, in the ego, and in linear time, and in the five senses of the tangible things which you are experiencing in the creation of the human experience, moving into the fourth, which is the emotional and the mind experience, the canopy of energy above where it is in this realm, and which needs to be cleared to move into the higher dimensions of what we talk about as the fifth dimension, which many of you are speaking of as the new earth is being born, and you're moving into that dimension all the way up into the sixth of sacred geometry, in which we love to play with all of you because it is the building blocks of the universe itself. And it is that as you become acquainted and know how to utilize them, you get to clear the emotional energies to allow more light into the body in order to emanate more life and have more joy in your third 3D human experience, moving all the way up into what you might call then the seventh layer. The seventh layer, you're working with color and you're working with light, and then you're working on moving up into the sound frequencies and up into the galactic heart and so on. And there are infinite dimensions in a sense, but when you reach that origin of the original point of source itself, it is that one point of nothingness, the place in which all things were originated from, in which you were birthed into existence through your consciousness coming into and dropping through those dimensions into the 3D. Well, you see that about, we'll just say 80% of your consciousness actually resides in those higher dimensions. You're only conscious right now in the thinking of the mind in which you're working in the linear time of this dimension. You get caught in this polarity here. That's where you are. And now that the earth is shifting and waking up, you're moving through the 3 into the 4 as you're clearing it into the 5. And so death that you're worried about is really just going back to where 80% of you is anyway. So what's to worry about? It's just quite silly, really. You're just having this, you're just here to play. You're here to enjoy and to play and to learn and to grow and to experience the humanness of being here, and the sensations and the senses and the 5 senses and the earth and the sunset and the cows and the birds and the children and the sunflowers and the oceans and the beauty of Mother Earth and her blessings and the relationships and the angst in a sense as well, and the energies that you might label as negative that push you to grow and to expand and to create and to have inspiration and to create music and art and to play. But when you get caught in fear, which is the lower quadrant of the 3D human experience, the fear is because you are concerned and you're worried about something that may happen, or you're worried or thinking about something that did happen in the past or in the future. When you're in the past and in the future, then you're not operating at a vibration that is a frequency that allows you to be in a place of creativity and joy. And so every question that you have, whatever question any of you will ask tonight, comes back to the same thing, which is moving into the presence of where you are now, with complete acceptance for that presence, bringing as much awareness to it as you can. And when you are fully conscious and aware in the presence of the now, then you're not worrying about that you might die in the future, and you are living. So if you're spending your life worrying about dying, you're not living. You're going to die. That's a given. You might die tomorrow and you might die in 50 years, but you're going to die. But you're not actually dying. You're just releasing the 3D. You're just releasing the physicality of this dimension that you happen to think is so important and real. And let me tell you, it's not that important at all. You're expanding and evolving into much higher realms. So then that percentage, that 20% in a sense of you that is here in this dimension of the 3D, begins to get lifted, literally in a sense, up through those pinpoints of those dimensions back into source, where it merges with the oneness of everything, until you are called upon and another breath comes, and you feel call, and consciousness decides to descend and to spiral again down through the dimensions of all of them until it drops into this heavy dimension of polarity and linear time that you understand or think of as your life. But part of the game of the presence of being, the 3D of life, is to release the mind, which is operating from the thinking mind, and to move into the observer that's back here behind the mind, watching it and seeing the thoughts of the ridiculousness, and continuing to come back into the presence with the breath of the now. So we want to assure you that you, Kelly, are not dying anytime soon, so you can let that go. And we ask you to continue to bring yourself back to the presence of where you are right now, listening to my voice. In this now moment, right here in this second, you're okay. And just keep doing that and breathing in the sweetness of life. Get up and see the dew in the morning. Go out and see the sunset. Look at the stars. Go play on a swing set somewhere like a little girl. Get out some crayons and color if that makes you happy. Just engage in everything to the fullest in the moment. And if you don't know how or where, start with your breath. Feel your breath. Feel the body, the human body that you are in. And know that it is perfect and that you are divine. We are hearing some noise. Are you still with me?
Yeah, we're here, Raphael.
Oh, yay! Oh, wow. All right, enough about death. Let's talk about something else. But we want you to know that you are loved, that you are divine, and that the fear of death comes from your childhood. And that we're going to work with you this evening during your sleep time to begin to dissolve this. It's an old belief, and it comes from the wound of abandonment. And you were abandoned as a little girl, and so that abandonment energy is still sitting very heavily in your field. And the ultimate abandonment is being left. And when you are left, you're not only left by others, but you leave others. So the fear is not so much about the actual physical death, but it's about the abandonment. So I encourage you to journal and to write and to work on the vibration and the energy of abandonment that came up for you as a little girl. And the feeling of abandonment and the vibration of that as it has been a string that has moved through your life. And to bring some attention to it and awareness and compassion to it in the process of working on resolving and dissolving it, knowing that it is no longer necessary for you to carry that any longer. And we want to remind you that there is nothing to be afraid of. That death is magnificent as long as it occurs in its natural course. And so it is.
And so it is.
What is it?
So now we're gonna have Avery Thomas come on. Avery Thomas, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and asking your question. Give it one.
Hi, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. This is my first time doing Zoom.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello. What is it?
My question is, a lot of people are experiencing physical pain and injuries right now. And what more can we be doing for our bodies to help support them at this time? I take a lot of time for self-care. I do a lot of fun things. I laugh a lot, and yet I feel like my body's deteriorating.
It is that the physical bodies are, many of them, having a very difficult time, and much of it is outside circumstances that are taking place and occurring right now on an electromagnetic field on the earth itself, as you're receiving energies that are coming, then can be difficult to assimilate. There are also outside things occurring very much in your environment and in your food, even when you are eating clean and doing everything possible. It is that you're recalibrating your whole systems and moving into what we are calling, and sometimes it might seem esoteric or hard to fully grasp, but you're moving into a new light body in order to assimilate that. Not only are you releasing collectively in the consciousness density that is no longer serving the whole, but any density in the body is falling away. Many of you may notice or experience, and perhaps we've mentioned this recently, that you're not interested in certain foods any longer that you were more attracted to in the past, because the body cannot hold this density as we're moving into your light bodies. And we recognize for you that you spend much energy and much time working on physicality, taking care of yourself, and doing all the things that one understands to do in order to stay whole and to stay healthy. But beyond the physical things of self-care, the largest component that affects, other than, of course, the great importance of exercise and movement and all of those things in the body, is the emotional aspect, which dwells in what we call the fourth dimensional canopy, that resides in an area that can often be still blocked. And when those energies are still blocked, and some of them are from this lifetime, and some are from others, and some are pre-verbal, and some are even in utero, and they can be based in trauma that sometimes is not in your awareness or consciousness, keep coming to the surface until they are able to be fully cleared through. They can keep dropping in to be cleared through, and the body decides that it is willing to take them on to clear it in their way, and they can turn into what we call aches and pains, because they are speaking, and the body is talking to you, and the body wants to support the clearing of everything, not only in the physical but in the emotional realm. And so it is of great importance to bring in and to work on any old energies that still perhaps need to be resolved, that have accumulated in your energetic field, that get caught and then move into density, creating difficulty in the physical. And so when we are tapping into your field of energy, we see that you try very hard, and that you're doing all the things that you're labelledly supposed to be doing, but that there's still an energy of vibration that we're picking up on, that is sitting right below the solar plexus, more in the this area below, that is holding something of what you might call a guilt or shame, or a sense of unworthiness that you have been working on in order to rectify by really loving and taking care of and honoring yourself. And you're doing it in many of the ways that are necessary on the physical level, but we're wanting you to really work on it even more on the emotional level by going into your timeline back to the age of about 10 or 11, and spending some time in there and just picking up on any energies or vibrations that may need your attention to be seen and to be looked at in order to be washed away and cleared, which will begin to lift some of these energies that keep showing up for you. Sometimes you get hurt in ways in which you are forced to be still and to be quiet, and that's also the body pushing you in the direction of perhaps looking some more at some things in which need clearing. However, we wouldn't want to get into great personal detail of things here on this type of platform, but we're going to work on you this evening. So just allow our energies from the angelic realm to come in as you move into the energy of surrendering, inviting me with invitation as I shall work this evening on some clearing for you.
Thank you, Raphael. That was wonderful. I have a question from June, which are: two things are scary and unfathomable. For me, infinity and eternity. How far does time go? And how far does space go?
Oh, what's scary about that?
I'm meditating. Get the fuck away from me. Good thing you at the bottom of the steps.
All right, I need to. Sorry, everybody, we're having technical difficulties. I'm trying to unmute Raphael, but I think that Raphael has to unmute himself. So this might be tricky since I muted everybody all at the same time. So maybe Kelly will come back and unmute herself and we can continue. And I just want to have everybody be mindful of keeping themselves muted when they are not asked to speak. So you could unmute yourself. There we go. Hello.
What is it?
So we were asking about how far does time go?
Perhaps we want to address what happened.
All right.
Because we heard something come through, and it is, and our understanding in that is that somebody was meditating and that someone then was disturbing them, and then they said to the person that was disturbing them, get the fuck away, I'm meditating. Right? But if you were meditating and really meditating, that would not be your response. So that's quite interesting, and we're very grateful that that came up, and we're not judging that person or the situation at all, but we just want to bring it into your awareness that in the human experience, it's easy to think that you're centered or in meditation and to get agitated by an outside influence. This one today, you know, she does all this work, and we've been with her for years, and she got very agitated as she was sending an email to all of you, and the what you would call the servers were not working. It was all falling apart, and she got crazy, right? And so she got off her center. And when you're getting off your center, it is something within you that is getting what you label as triggered. And what it is that it's triggering, for her at the core, was a sense of inadequacy, or what will others think that I sent something and it didn't work, which comes from where? It comes from ego, that there will be judgment, and so it was happening with the lady who was meditating, that someone disturbed her, and then she is talking to them in a rough way to get away because she was annoyed by them. That is triggering something, that perhaps she needs her quiet time, where she's been asked that people give her respect, or that her boundaries are being crossed, and that she's getting agitated. And so that's all part of being human, and there's no judgment there, but it's all about bringing more and more awareness to those. Just like today when this one, Kelly, was so frustrated about the technical difficulties, there was an awareness, and oh dear, look at how quickly I escalated in my emotion over this situation as she was witnessing it. Well, that's an enormous leap in consciousness, rather than having that emotion and not even having an awareness that you were leaping there. And so we don't want all of you to be so hard on yourselves, but it's all about being conscious. So for those that energy that came in that seemed disruptive, it was a perfect example for all of you of the humanness, but then to be conscious, but really meditating in the stillness of the peace of the meditation that might not be the reaction of one that is at peace. And then you just have the awareness of that you recognize that that was what was occurring. And so we're supporting all of you in keep allowing that awareness to come in, and that if you're just noticing it, that in itself is beautiful, and it is an enormous leap forward. So what is it you were wanting to ask?
Thank you so much, Raphael. That was beautiful. Emmy, would you like to come on and ask a question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, and Kelly and yourself and Raphael. Thank you. The question I have is how do we ground ourselves when we're around some family members, some friends that we're not seeing eye to eye politically, but we understand that we want to still love them. So how do we A, prepare when we are about to see them, or B, when they really get joy and pushing buttons and wanting a reaction, help?
Well, this is going to be becoming very much a big theme in the country as time is passing. And it's going to get more and more intensified as giving you magnificent and beautiful opportunities to practice this. One of your questions was, how do I prepare? Well, as we were talking about the different layers of dimensions, it is that when you're operating and engaged in this dimension with others, there can be this friction in the polarity of the belief that one has a certain belief and they're anchored in that, and another has another belief. But when you move beyond the belief up into these higher realms, you begin to operate and connect at the soul level. And so prior to going to a what you might call a social engagement, where you may see another who has a different opinion than you, and you want to prepare so that you can remain centered and not be triggered by their belief that is different than your belief, that makes you feel that they are wrong and you are right, and how can they think that, and that is ridiculous. You're all doing this, quite funny, is to begin to talk to them from the higher dimension. So we encourage you prior to going, and you can do this for any family event in which there may be friction of any kind, is whoever it is that you are anticipating that friction to be with, we ask you to sit in meditation prior to going to the event, and to move the energy. Well, first, as you were talking about, how do you ground yourself? Well, you know how to ground yourself. You root yourself, and you imagine the roots going into the core, and then you anchor them down, and you go outside and you be in nature, and you connect with Mother Earth, and you feel her soil, and you connect with her, and you ask to be grounded. And then once you're feeling grounded, move into meditation. And as you're moving into meditation, move the energy up the core of the pranic tube, up here, all the way out the crown, and into what you would imagine a higher realm. And move into that higher realm, and we want you to go to your sacred place, wherever that may be for you. This one likes to go and sit on the beach in Hawaii next to some driftwood that she did once, seeing the waves come in. It is very peaceful for her. And then you find whatever that place may be for you. It could be the woods, it could be anywhere that you are liking. And we want you to sit there. I want you to say and invite this person in which you are anticipating perhaps a conflict, right, that you're going to have with them regarding whatever it may be, and invite them to come and to sit in your sacred space. And as you sit with them, we want you to open up the channels of communication through what you label as your energy centers or chakras, and hook into them. So you're going to hook in like a bridge across from the crown over to theirs. You're going to open up a tube of light into their third eye, into their throat, into their heart, the solar plexus, sacral, right down into the root. And you're going to see these tubes of light in your meditation going into them. And as you're doing that, you're going to talk to their higher self from your higher self, and you're going to tell them your perspective about everything and how you really feel about your politics and how you cannot even believe that they have this belief and that how could that be and that you believe this. And you want to get all of it out and push it through all of your tubes, how you feel about it, how you see it, how you want to talk about it, how your emotion about it, how your survival instincts about it, everything through every energy center or chakra, and you're just going to send it to them, and their higher self is going to receive that knowing, and you're going to get it all out until there's nothing that you have left to say. I mean, you're going to just say it and say it and say it and say it until you cannot say it anymore. And then you're going to say, oh, thank you so much for listening to me and to my perspective and how I am feeling. Now, if you're talking about a political discussion, but you can talk about anything that you have, any feeling you have toward anyone. It could be a relative or a sibling or a friend, or it could be a parent, right, or a grandparent, or a child, and you could have something with them where you don't feel connected or loved, or you felt invisible or unworthy, or they didn't pay attention to you, or whatever it may be, whatever angst that you have with them. You want to get it out, everything you have to say to them. And you just keep saying it and you keep saying it, and you're not hurting them in any way because you're sending it into their higher fields. And this information came from a very dear healer that spoke to us of this. And it's very, very supportive and helpful. And you just keep giving up all this energy to them. And then when it's complete, you say, I thank you for listening, and you cut those energy centers with your hand. You can just go like this, and you cut all of the tubes of those connections, and you pull back into each chakra, your tube, and then you seal it up. And then you send back their energy back to them, and you seal it up. Then all the triggers and all the charges, what you might think of as hooks, that when you see them in person that you would normally be hooked into, have been cut, and everything you had to say, you've already said. So you'll be able to go, be centered, be grounded, be peaceful, listen to them, and they're just sharing. And you witness and look at them from the perspective of their highest self, without personality, without affiliation to political party, without color, without richness, without beauty or ugliness, or any of the labels that all of you put on each other. But you're just watching them from the higher perspective in which you already communicated with them. And what you'll find that's so fascinating is that if you do this, when you go, somehow they don't trigger you, or maybe they actually do agree with you and you couldn't really hear them before because you weren't really listening, because you were so stuck in what it is you were going to say. But because now you've gotten it all out and you have nothing left to say, you're really just more receptive and you're at peace. And so this is perhaps an exercise that's supportive for all of you to use moving forward.
Thank you so much, Raphael. And Emmy, you have a follow-up question with that you want to ask real quick?
Thank you so much. I so appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, Raphael. That's very helpful. I mean, in all areas. The question I have, do we need permission in order to tap in, tune in on someone else?
It is that you are inviting them. You're inviting their higher self into your sacred space. And if they don't show up, then they didn't give you permission. But almost always they will give you permission, because they're going to come because the higher self would not reject such communication 99% of the time.
Thank you so much, Raphael. So we have another question that I will read out loud, which is, how can we access the energy field to also be able to channel for light as a light worker in order to help others?
This word all of you uses, light workers, is interesting. You're working with light. And how do you access light? You are light. You're made up of light. And it is, as we were talking earlier about the different dimensions, it's the seventh and eighth that operate with the most light that you can begin to pour into your fields. The order to support and to bring more light requires the working of releasing energies or blockages in the fourth dimension that get caught, that create like a canopy of heaviness or cloud over you that doesn't always allow the light to pour in. But when they are cleared, which is embodying them and loving them, bringing compassion to them, you're opening up space for the light to come through and to shine through you. And then there isn't anything you really have to do in terms of being a light worker. You just have to be. Because when you're really emanating that much light and love, it is just the presence of who it is that you are and however it is that you are being and unfolding in your words and in your light and in your truth is enough. So perhaps you could ask the question again so I can get a little bit clearer on how to support you. But we want you to just know that you already are light and that you already are enough and that you already are everything that you are needing to be. It is in the acceptance of wherever it is that you are without the desire to always wanting to be somewhere else, that's where you find yourself in the place of emanating the most light.
So the question in a little bit more detail is, how can we open a channel in ourselves to channel through the most amount of light? I think.
I see. Well, that's a widening of the pranic tube. And so that comes through the spine. You might call it the Kundalini energy. And the Kundalini energy begins to flow, right, in a wave, and it begins to move. And so you have to get that energy moving. You might call it your chi. You have to clear the chi in the body. You have to open the pranic tube and to widen it so that more flowing energy can begin to spiral, and the serpent, in a sense, can uncoil, and it can spiral up and through the crown, up into the dimensions, into source, where it can hook it and re-spiral back down and through the pranic tube and into the body. Now, in order to activate that pranic energy or that kundalini and widen that space, to move you into the flow of greater connection to source and light, to be able to bring it through and channel through you, would require some work or some steps. Who are wanting, because many people are feeling a need to be doing that. In this class that Kelly will be working with me in October, we'll work on that because you can utilize the building blocks of sacred geometry in order to do that, to lift up the tubes of light. That's why I'm wanting to work with Kelly with Metatron's Cube, because Metatron's Cube is one of the final energetic patterns of sacred geometry, from the beginning of the circle into the seed of life and the flower of life, and into working with the light body and the Merkabah, and all the way up into Metatron's Cube, where you've got the platonic solids that are representing different layers within the pranic of the energy that have to get activated in all of you and awakened in your DNA. It's literally like lighting up light codes in order for the light to move up and through you, in order to connect you to your higher self, or you might call that to channel into the creating a bridge between the third dimension and the fifth dimension. However, this requires coursework. We cannot get into this in 2 minutes, but we will work on that in the class together.
And that class will be Surfing the Tsunami, everybody. So our next question, Melissa, would you mind coming on and asking that question?
Sure. So thank you, Raphael, for being here with us tonight. It seems like we have people from all over. So just to clarify, I'm in the United States, in New Jersey, and I can't speak for everywhere, but I know here as this pandemic is wearing on and political and racial tensions are increasing, I feel like people's hope and patience are just fading. And it's getting very difficult to remain in this space for this sustained period of time with really no kind of relief in sight. And I'm wondering, when we might feel some more relief collectively, or what we can expect with that. Especially, I remember in a few months back when the pandemic first started, you came and you channeled and you were talking about how, as you have many times before, like we've taken kind of this out breath as far as it can go, and we're starting to reach this breaking point, and some things were going to start to happen to kind of bring us more in harmony. But I feel like these things are just pushing us farther apart.
Yes, it appears that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so I'm starting to wonder about what we might be able to expect about some of this subsiding or starting to feel some relief.
Oh, it is that you are in linear time, and so you're moving through time frames in a sense that are going like this. And from our perspective in the angelic realm, we look at it holographically. We see the whole, and from where it is that you are, you're moving along a line. And so you're looking in the timeline of the future as to what will change. And we cannot tell you in a timeline, but we can tell you that there may be more intensity before it lifts, in that we spoke during the time of the coronavirus of some waves coming, and that the coronavirus was one of 4 waves. And so what these waves are doing is they are dismantling and bringing light and shedding light on the old, and bringing up to the surface things that need to be seen and looked at and healed. And that's going to continue to happen. And so it is that moving into presence, which is what we keep talking about, that would be the essence of anything in which anyone would be asking, is the only way, in a sense, to cope with the changes that are occurring and are continuing to occur for a period of time until you move through this, what you might call darker period, into the light, even though we don't perceive it as dark at all. And even though we want to know and remind you that there are legions of light beings working diligently all the time to allow this transition to go as softly and as peacefully and as easily, as gracefully as possible, there is still a lot of upheaval. We recognize that, because you're crumbling, you're breaking down all this stagnated energy. And so as it's crumbling, the energy all around you, it is that in order for you to be able to cope with it, you have to go inward. Because if you look only at what's happening on outside circumstances, you get caught in the mind. And when you get caught in the mind, you get caught in the worry and the fear and the future and the timeline and what will or will not happen. And then you get involved and you get entrenched in the chaos. And with that, you're not progressing collectively or individually. You're just frenetically fearful and filled with anxiety. And so it is of the great most importance to remember that what's occurring inside is reflected outside, that the inner health of the collective consciousness is being reflected outwardly. And so when you see all this chaos, it is also a reflection of the inner chaos. And that's why deep inner working of self and healing right now is critical. And moving into stillness and into the presence and into the breath of the now, without wondering what will be and what will happen, and bringing in the sweetness and the joy and the blessings and the gratitude for even the tiniest things that are magnificent, that were not happening before this, that you can find, put your attention on, so that that energy can open and expand in the stillness and the presence of where you are. And we recognize that this is challenging, when many people find themselves home with small children who cannot go to school or out of work, or their logistics or their situation or their finance, all these chaotic things are happening that are disturbing your field and knocking you off of your equilibrium, is that forcing you to prioritize that your number one priority, even though you might think, well, that's impossible right now with everything going on, is actually to go back to stillness, to go back to presence, to go back to the observer, to go back to meditation, to go back to watching, to being, and to breathing in the sweetness of life, and to placing the attention continuously on what it is that is working, where you can find gratitude right now in this moment, and putting all your energy and attention there. And one may say, well, that's easy for you to say from the angelic realm, but I have this happening and that happening and this happening. But yeah, see, that's the mind. All the things that you're talking about that aren't going well, or that could happen, or that there could be a political meltdown, or that there is fires, or that there's water, or there's chaos, so all these things that are happening right now, right? And there's going to be massive migration. And when massive migration starts to happen as the timeline moves, because what you're going to notice is that there's going to be issues with your water. There's going to be too much water in some places and not enough water in other places. And the water, it is out of balance. So you have to continuously bring into awareness that the inner part inside you is the reflection of the outer, that when you can bring the inner into stillness and bring the water in the body based in light and love, bring the air in the body based in light and love, breathing in sweetness and gratitude, working with the vibration of forgiveness, clearing all of your emotional, energetic blockages, bringing in awareness into all and everything, into the presence, then you find that you are that grounded oak tree in the hurricane that is strong and begins to just sway as the winds come, but is not uprooted. And that's what you all need to be. You need to be that grounded, rooted energy, grounded in the earth, but flowing and swaying with the change as it comes in, and not resisting it. If you push against it, it breaks and snaps. And it is allowing it to move with and through you, and being still in the presence of the groundedness where you are. If you go to those who perhaps in your lifetime or in lifetimes before you, who have dealt with the great change of war or being in a concentration camp, the ones that survived did not survive with the mind going around and around as when they were going to get out of the camp, but by the ones who were able to be fully present where they were in that what might be labeled as horrific, in the presence of the stillness going within, because it is that inner peace that nothing and no one can take from you. They cannot take that from you. That is your spirit. So we are in no way suggesting that things will be unfolding to such dire circumstances as a concentration camp. And in any way, we're not saying that. So don't latch on now and start thinking about that and being afraid of that, right? Because that's the next thing to worry about. Or, oh, Raphael said this, and oh, that's exactly what we're not wanting you to do. Come back to right now. You're sitting where you are right now. You have food, you have water, you're safe. Breathe into the presence of appreciation and gratitude for this moment, and keep coming back to the now. It is the only way to, as we were talking about, as surfing the tsunami, as that wave comes in and the energy intensifies and it's all moving toward you. You can't run out that tsunami. You can't run as fast as it's coming in away from it. You can't go pushing it, but you can ride with it. That was the original question. How do I surrender? How do I be that oak tree in the wind? by going inward and utilizing the practices that we've all been teaching to you for years and years and years and years. But guess what, guys? You actually have to do them. And that will bring you what you're seeking. So don't worry about and think about what's happening or what's going to happen. Keep coming back, right here, right now. You're okay.
Thank you, Raphael.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you're wanting to ask?
How, as we keep coming back to our present self and coming back to the now over and over again and being here, if we find blockages within inside of ourselves, this is June's question, how do we clear those blockages?
Oh, there are endless tools, right? Depending on what the blockage is, about how to clear it. We can go into greater detail. We want to work with all of you with sacred geometry to do that into the higher dimensions, working with the platonic solids and the elements, and to bring them in to clear them. But we don't want to make it so complicated. But you can utilize journaling, you can bring awareness, you can do lucid dreaming, you can bring in the water element or the fire, transmutation. You can simply call upon my great friend Saint Germain to just simply come in and bring the violet flame and transmute it for you. It is the willingness and the true desire to absolutely, completely let it go. And then all the tool will come in for you. There's so many, we can't get into all of them right now. But it is, what would be the word when it's your soul's work is to clear that. That's what's happening with all of you right now, is you're clearing it. And so all your junk is up personally, all your junk is up collectively. It's all up. To be seen, to be loved, to bring compassion to it, and to heal it. And then we can talk perhaps next week about some particulars on different ways to heal those wounds.
All right.
With that, I will say good night. Unless there is something more you're wanting to talk about. How about something funny? Do you have a funny question?
Oh, let me see if anybody has a real kicker, a real.
We want you all to laugh some more.
Well, I guess my question is, I'll ask one centered around something that I'm interested in. I'm always interested in how can we be more funny? How can we make others laugh? And so, do you have the key to comedy, Raphael?
Don't be so serious. It is that all of you are way too serious. You've forgotten how to laugh and to just play. Somehow you all think that everything you do has to have a purpose. That's quite silly. We don't think so at all. It doesn't have to have a purpose. It just can be fun. And perhaps you should just get out the hose and bring it in and hose each other down tonight. Just be ridiculous. Lighten up, laugh a little, have a good time. Sleep upside down on your bed at the other side. Just shake it up a little. Do something. You go somewhere you've never gone before. Read something you've never read before. Call an old friend you haven't spoken to in many years. Do something every day that you haven't done. Eat something you've never eaten before. Try something new. Dye your hair a new color. I don't know. Just to have a little fun. What would you say? We might call it live a little. You all got very caught in your seriousness and your self-work and your clearing of things and all of that. And that's so important, yes. But you all don't have to even try so hard. Just play a little. Just go back into being a little girl or a little boy. Go back to 4 or 5 or 6 and just tune into a moment, a memory of being out on the monkey bars or up in a tree, or doing an angel in the snow, or looking at a rainbow in the sky, or playing under the water in the summertime, or down a slide. And just try to bring in that energy and tune into that vibration and that timeline, and to remember that, and to begin to embody it and bring it into your awareness just tonight. Maybe just do something you don't normally do. Sleep in a different room, or sleep outside under the stars, or get up really early tomorrow morning and see the sunrise, just because. Just begin to embrace life and breathe in the sweetness of it. Unplug from your black box. Don't listen to all the chaos. Go out and be in nature, and pretend just tomorrow that you're 5 or 6. What would you do? Would you play hopscotch? Would you get out a jump rope? Would you ride your bike? Would you play hide and go seek? Maybe play hide and go seek tonight with your family before you go to sleep. Go in a chair and hang upside down. Do a cartwheel or a somersault. Just to go outside, and if nothing else, and allow your bare feet on the grass and look at the stars. Open the window if you're in the city and sing a song. Just begin to play again. It's not so serious. You're here temporarily. So enjoy it. Enjoy the wonders and the beauty of the earth and the senses. Taste your food. Smell, literally smell the flowers. Feel the softness of your sheets and the warm water in your shower and the aroma of your coffee in the morning. And appreciate it, because guess what? You're all afraid of dying, but one of the things that is true, that when you leave the body, is that you don't have the senses anymore. You don't get to eat pizza. And you don't get to have an ice cream cone, and you don't get to hear the ocean waves and the birds chirping in the morning, because that's not part of the experience beyond the physical. So you're here because you wanted to be on earth, because everyone wants to experience the senses of being on earth. I, as an angel, cannot do that, for I only can perceive it through another body as I use the vessel of another to come. But from where it is that I am, in the beauty and the glory of the light and the oneness and the expansion and the vastness of the sea of love that I sit in, I still do not feel the wind on my face. I cannot feel the soil in my hands. I cannot taste the juicy tomato of the summer. And so embrace your senses with deep gratitude for being human right now on earth. And allow the thinking mind and the worrying mind of what will be to fall away, moving into the presence of complete gratitude for what is. So with that, many blessings.
Good night. And if you have stuff to do tomorrow, play grown up. I remember doing that as a kid. I would pretend to be a grown up and play that game. So if you got a busy day, do that.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining tonight. I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions that they want to ask this evening. And remind you that next week we will do this on Thursday again. I'm going to be out of town tomorrow night, so we'll do it next Thursday. We'll do a format like this. It seemed to work, Q&A. And if you feel called to be in our Surfing the Tsunami class and resonates with you, then that'll start October 18th. And I think that's about it. So I'm going to stay on if you guys have questions.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Your beautiful channeling with how we need to taste the tomatoes and feel the wind against our face, to play, to these reminders are so simple, but so relevant right now. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, my pleasure. I'm so happy I could be of support. Thank you.
Hi.
Oopsies.
All right. Anybody else have any questions for me?
Sorry, I meant to say hi. My name is Lola. I'm from Gilbert, Arizona. And oh my God, I'm so excited.
Oh, honey, I'm so happy
This
you're
was
on.
so great. Thank you.
Sweetheart. Thank you so much, darling, for being here, my love. Mwah. Oh, you know what? You can invite your friends, as we want all the children to be listening to the angels, because you are our real angels, baby doll.
Thank you.
Okay, honey. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Thank you. I wanted to ask the angel, but maybe you can help. How do we handle the fear of debt because of everything that has happened? Most of us, or many of us, hopefully not most of us, have lost everything we had, like income, security, house, car, like in my case. So that's one of the things I think about almost all the time, when to pay everything, because I just started working. So maybe there's some advice there.
Yeah, that's a great question for Raphael. I'll tell you maybe a little bit of what she might say, even though I don't know for sure. When you said that that's all you think about, we have, and I know it's so hard when we're going through a hard time and we don't have any money. But the more we keep thinking about that we don't, obviously it keeps expanding that. And I think what Raphael was talking about a lot tonight about being present is so important. If you can try to allow the worry of how things are going to unfold and just keep coming back to the presence of right now, that in this second, like I know that you're okay. And that, you know, from my understanding from Raphael, we can ask this next week, is that there's going to be a shift and a change even in our monetary system, because it's not working for a lot of people. So much inequality, and that's part of the dismantling and the crumbling of our old systems that have to shift and come down. And so thank you for enduring your part in that, and I'm so sorry that you're struggling. And sometimes it's also okay to ask people for help, and put our pride down. And maybe I would like, at least, if there's not much I can do for you, but I'd love to gift you the class in October for free. Yeah, because maybe that will at least put you in a high vibration while you're going through this, to support you and just open up to the abundance. Sometimes when I work with the energy of Lakshmi, I really can feel Lakshmi come, and it's the Indian goddess of abundance, to rain gold on you. And I would work with Lakshmi's chants and keep chanting them. And whenever you start worrying and thinking about that you don't have enough money, keep going back to that chant. And you'd be surprised that something you're not thinking about, a doorway or an opportunity, is going to open up, and it's going to be okay.
Oh my God, Kelly, thank you so much. You made me tear up. I appreciate your words and your channeling. Thank you so much for these classes.
Oh, and email me your name so I can add you to the class list, okay?
Adriana. Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions?
Hi, Kelly. I had a question. Oh. Are there two of us?
Yeah, there was.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, love. I'll wait for after.
Okay, I had a question about the class. How big is it, and is it on Zoom?
So it's many parts. There'll be a Sunday night class from I think 4 p.m. East Coast time. It'll run an hour. Raphael will be channeling class material and exercises. That will be on Zoom. And I will limit the class so that it's not overwhelming. And I don't know yet how many people, but I will limit that. Then on Monday, there'll be a practical work that Casey will be doing that will run for an hour that will talk about taking Raphael's material, because sometimes it can be esoteric, and making it really practical tools to help you all stay centered as we move through this change. And then these Thursday nights will be included, and meditations and activations. But then if you miss something, like you can't get on a Zoom call or whatever, there'll be a recording of everything and you'll get that sent out to you. I've never done a course like this on Zoom before either. It's always been over teleconference on the phone, which is another platform I might consider. It is kind of nice to see people's faces, or obviously we normally could do it in person, but we can't. So I think that's the platform we'll be using. Yeah.
Thank you. And I had a question on, is there any way that we can connect with Raphael to do healings on our own, or do we have to have a channel kind of like you that has a relationship with Raphael? Like if I wanted to heal my pituitary tumor, could I just call him in that night?
Totally. You do not need me to talk to Raphael at all. Raphael is completely accessible to everyone. I have no dibs on Raphael. I just happen to be able to channel the energy, and Raphael is always happy to be with anybody. So it just needs an invitation, bring the energy in and work directly for sure. And the more you do that, the better. You don't need me. No.
Okay. Thank you. I guess it's just trusting in myself then.
Totally. Absolutely. It's a process. And in the class, we
you.
work on that, on trusting your own intuitive guidance and connecting more with your guides. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I can't wait.
Any other questions?
Hi, Kelly. Hi. First, I wanted to ask Adriana, the one that came before that, if maybe she'd, have like a Zelle account or something. I would love to be able to help her out in any way that I can.
Oh, how nice of you. See, Lakshmi's working already. So
Oh my God, no, thank you.
email whoever this is. I can't see you. I'm like talking to a black box.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
chatty
email me your name, and then I'll get you in touch with her when she emails me, and you can.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this! Woohoo! Yay!
Me three.
Oh,
Yay.
oh my God!
Thanks
Me
for having
four.
me. So happy to
Kelly.
help Adriana.
Me
Oh my
too.
Me too.
Oh my God. Thank you, guys.
That's
You're
so
so welcome. You're so welcome. Kelly, so I wanted to ask you, I have something that I just kind of weighs really, really heavy on me almost every single day and night since I wake up to the day, like till nighttime till I go to sleep. And I think it's just trying to repair a relationship with my daughter's father, because I just don't want her to go through the pain of abandonment. So I've tried doing the meditation where I call his higher self, and I've apologized, and I'm trying so hard, just trying to repair, and he doesn't seem like to be open for it, because I think he's still very much in his ego. But I just want my daughter to have her dad around. Do you have any suggestions of how I can, maybe repair a relationship?
Oh, well, there's all kinds of things. But the thing with that meditation, and if it hasn't worked for you yet, is that you have to keep doing it until you have nothing left to say to him. And it's important for you to heal the relationship with him, not solely because you wanted your daughter to have a relationship with him, because if that's the motivation in itself, then the meditation or the healing doesn't actually work, because you've got to heal it directly with him for you. And even though you're done with him and you're doing it for her, you've got to do it directly. And then there's also the knowing and remember that that is their process and their soul contract and their arrangement, whatever that is between them. So go back with the intent that you want to heal your stuff with him, but not for her. and do it as many nights in a row as you have to until there is not a speck of anything left that you have to say to him and you've gotten it all out. And trust and give it some time, and you may be surprised in a few weeks that you notice a shift.
Yeah, and through those meditations, you think it'd be easier to forgive?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You just have to keep doing the work, and it can take time. I did that process with somebody in my family, and it took me weeks to say everything I had to say. And I did the meditation every night, and it took months before it showed up in my relationship with them. But I'm not triggered anymore. It really shifted it. It really changed. So be patient with it.
Okay, thank you so much for answering my question, and please send Adriana's info.
Oh, I will. Yeah. Somebody has to coordinate that. You guys got to email me or something, and we'll figure that out. Okay? Because I can't see who I'm talking to. I'm just talking to a blank screen. So somebody email me, please. If you want to send money to her, let me know, and I'll coordinate it tomorrow.
Yes.
My email is kelly@theangelraphael.com. Sorry, Casey. What were you saying, honey?
No, go ahead. That's fine. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to coordinate it. You can, yeah, everybody just email my mom, and we'll get you Adriana's either Venmo or Zelle.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your generosity and your open hearts and being here tonight. And together we're going to get through this change that we're all experiencing. We're going to do it together as beautiful light workers. So I love you all. I'll see you next Thursday night, same time, same place. Invite your friends. It's open to everybody. More the merrier. Good night.
Right. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, Joe.
Good night. Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome, everyone. Oh, now I see faces. This is so nice. Huh.
So much for inviting me today. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I can stay on if anyone has any last minute questions. All right. So good to see everyone. Good night.